Good morning, everyone. So, the topic for today is transportation in plants. Just as we discussed transportation in animals and you can say the transportation in human beings, we are going to discuss the transportation in plants. So, now soil, that is the nearest and the richest source of raw material for plants like nitrogen, phosphorus, and other minerals. Now, see, the plants, they also need raw materials for their survival. We know that plants are photosynthetic and they have to manufacture their own food. For that, they need raw materials like water. And here are the given some names of the minerals like nitrogen, phosphorus, and other. So these substances, they are absorbed by the part of the plant which is in contact with the soil, and that is roots. Means these substances are absorbed by the plants with the help of roots. Now, we have also studied the phenomenon of diffusion, where we know that in this process, the things move from, or the molecules move from their higher concentration to the low concentration. So, just as in this case, the diffusion of raw materials to all parts of the plant body can easily take place if the distances between soil contacting organs and the chlorophyll containing organs are small. Now, here the soil contacting organs means the organs which are in contact with the soil, that is the roots, and the chlorophyll containing organs, that is the leaves. So, means if the length of the plant is small and the distance between the roots and the leaves are not very much, so in that case, diffusion can play a role in it. Okay, but if the distances are very large, then the diffusion process will not be sufficient to provide raw materials and leaves and energy in the roots. So there has to be some other, say, a process for traveling these raw materials to the top of the plant. So one thing is there we have to think about that plants have low energy needs because they are stationary, they do not move, and they have a large proportion of dead cells in many tissues. Dead cells are there because dead cells, they provide mechanical support. So keeping this in mind, they can have a slow transport system, but the distances over which the transport systems have to operate can be very large. So two things are there. Number one, that they have low energy needs, so they can afford to have a slow transport system, but the distance to which the transport has to take place, it can be very large. Means the trees are very large, I mean they are tall. So you have seen that the raw materials, they have to be taken up to the top of the tall trees also. So for this, there is a requirement of plant transport system, that energy stored in leaves have to be transported to all parts of the plant. Energy that is stored in leaves means leaves, we know they are called as the food factories of the plant. So they manufacture food, they photosynthesize. So the starch which is stored in them, that has to be given to each and every part of the body, the plant body, and the raw materials like the minerals and the water we discussed, they have to be moved from the roots to the required parts of the plant, to all the parts of the plant that is required. So here two things are there, that the movement of water and minerals from the roots, and the leaves manufacture food by the photosynthesis, so that food has to be given to each and every part of the plant body. So for this, we have the plants have two types of conducting tissues or vascular tissue. First is xylem. So transport of water and minerals takes place by conducting tissue called xylem. Now we know that xylem is a complex tissue. It is made up of four types of cells: tracheids, vessels, xylem parenchyma, and xylem fibers. So here are shown the tracheids. Tracheids and vessels. They together they are called as trachea elements, and they play a major role in say transporting the water and minerals. All right. So here, the transport of food, it takes place by a conducting tissue which is present in the plants, and that is called as a phloem. Phloem is again a complex tissue which is made up of four types of cells. Sieve tubes, you can see here sieve tubes. Adjacent to that is present companion cells. Then the phloem parenchyma, and fourth one is phloem fibers. So here the sieve tubes along with the companion cells, they play a role in the transportation of food from leaves to every part of the plant. Now, here is the transport system in plants. Now, one thing you have to see, you have to pay attention to that. See, the xylem tissues, they carry water and dissolved minerals up from the roots. That flow is unidirectional. That is upwards only. That is going to the leaves also. Water and minerals from the soil, you can see that is going to the leaves also. And food made by the leaves, that is going up to the stem, that is also going to the root. It means that the flow of food is, or the transport of food is bidirectional in both the directions, in the upward and the low, in the downward direction also. But if we see the transport of food, water and minerals through the xylem tissue, it is only in the upward direction, that is unidirectional. So, transport of water in xylem tissue, vessels and tracheids, as we discussed. Now, vessels and tracheids of the roots, stems, and leaves, they are interconnected to form a continuous system of water conducting channels reaching to the top of the plant. Here you can see now water which is absorbed from the roots, it is traveling up to the trunk, and here it is evaporating by means of a system that is called as transpiration. So the xylem tissue which is present in the roots and in the stems and in the leaves, it is a interconnected, it is a continuous system. So the water which is absorbed by the roots is picked up by the xylem tissue of the stem, and then is picked up by the xylem tissue of the leaves. So at the roots, now how this happens, at the roots, the cells in contact with the soil, they actively take up ions. When we say active transport, means there is a utilization of energy. Thus creating a concentration difference of these ions between the root and the soil. Now, concentration difference means when the roots, when the cells in the soil, they take up ions, then in the when the cells in the root they take up ions, then in the soil there is a less concentration of the ions as compared to the cells of the root. So that takes place from high to low concentration. The diffusion of cells, this water takes place. Movement of water from soil into the root takes place because of this, and thus creating a column of water that is steadily pushed upwards. So first, due to the active take up by the ions, there is generated a concentration difference, and the water thus moves from the region of its high concentration to the region of its low concentration, and thus what happens is that a column of water is created and which is pushed upwards, just as we saw in the last slide. So here transpiration plays a major role. How? Now you can see in this diagram that water is absorbed by the root hairs. It is going upwards to the stem, it is going to the leaves. And from the leaves, the water is evaporated by a process which is called as a transpiration. So water loss through the stomata, it is replaced by the water from the xylem vessels in the leaf. Evaporation of water molecules from the cells of a leaf creates a suction which pulls water from the xylem cells of the roots. The loss of water in the form of vapor from the aerial parts of the plant is called as transpiration. So try to understand this phenomenon, that as the water is absorbed by the roots, it goes up to the stem, it goes up to the leaves. All right, from the leaves it is evaporated. Then more water is passes on to the from the stem, and then from the root. So it creates a continuous channel, and a suction is created which pulls the water. That is called as a suction pull. And because of this reason, the water is transported to the high up in the tall trees. Okay. So during the day, when the stomata are open, the transpiration pull, the pull which is caused by the transpiration, it becomes the major driving force in the movement of water in the xylem. And the effect of root pressure in the transport of water is more important at night. At night, when there is less transpiration or no transpiration, so the plant will be entirely dependent on root pressure for conducting water to the top portions of the plant. And the root pressure is the pressure we just discussed, which is created because of the difference in the concentration of ions. So that kind of pressure is created, and which pulls the water from the root. In the at night, it is more important, as the transpiration rate is lower, it is very less. All right. So, till now, we have discussed that transportation in plants is of two things. It involves the transportation of water and minerals that takes place through xylem, and transpiration is playing a major role in it. Okay. Now, we are going to sorry, look at the transport of food and other substances. That is taking place by another complex tissue in plants that is called as the phloem. Now, transfer of soluble products of photosynthesis is called translocation. So, the products, they are synthesized in the leaves. You can see here, we know that leaves are the food factories, so the food is synthesized in the leaves, and these substances are delivered to the storage organs of roots, fruits, and seeds, and to growing organs. The translocation of substances takes place in sieve tubes with the help of adjacent companion cells. Now here you can see that this green one, it is source. It is a leaf cell where the photosynthesis has taken place and the starch is formed. Now you have to understand one thing, that although a starch, that is a product, um, we say that it is, you can say the product of photosynthesis, it is glucose. It is stored in the form of starch, but it is transported in the form of sucrose. Here you can see sucrose is written. So this sucrose, it has to be transported to all the parts of the plant. So here sieve tube elements are there, companion cells are there. When the sucrose, it actively goes from the source, that is the leaf, to the phloem tissue, then it increases the osmotic pressure of the tissue, causing water to move into it, right? So you can see the water from the xylem vessels, it is moving into the sieve tube elements, and the entrance of the water causes pressure to build up and forces the water and dissolved materials to move through the phloem from the leaves into the rest of the plant. So because of the movement of the sucrose into the companion cells, and from that to the sieve tube elements, the osmotic pressure increases, or you can say the tendency of the water of pure tendency to gain the pure solvent, it increases. So water enters, and with the water, the the things are passed on, the dissolved materials are passed on or moved through the phloem from the leaves into the rest of the plant. How you can say they are going to the sink. Sink means where it has to be finally reached. So in that case, in the first step, there is utilization of energy. Material like sucrose is transferred into phloem tissue using energy from ATP. ATP is the energy currency of the cell, that is adenosine triphosphate. This increases the osmotic pressure of the tissue, causing water to move into it, and the entrance of water causes pressure to build up, and forces of water and dissolved materials to move through the phloem from the leaves into the rest of the plant. So this was the transportation of food in the plants with the help of phloem tissue. So today we have discussed this topic, transportation in plants. So in that, the transportation of water and minerals that takes place by means of xylem tissue, and in that the two cells of the xylem tissue, tracheids and the vessels, play a major role. And in the case of translocation of food, we have this vascular tissue which is called as the phloem, and the two cells of the phloem, that is the sieve tubes in the companion cells, they play a major role. All right, I hope this is clear to you. And okay, so that's it for today. Please watch this video at least twice to understand the things. So I have tried my best to present it in a very simple way. Okay, so thank you.